We have a massive power, and it's the power to say no.
2024 is the year when the pushback begins in earnest.
People ain't seen nothing yet. That's what I keep telling people.
It is a master-servant relationship where we, the governed, are the masters.
Doctors are gaslighting patients.
You press down enough on people for long enough, you leave them no choice but to rebel.
So, no, I don't want to forget about it, and I won't shut up about COVID.
The story of the unvaccinated is still yet to be told.
We are one people, one flag, one Australia.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the XCandidates. My name is Stephen Tripp, joined by Mr. Adam Zahra. How are you going over there, Adam?
Oh, I'm pretty good, thanks, mate. How are you going?
Yeah, very well, thank you. So
that was a nice new intro.
Yeah, well, you got to spice things up all the time and keep things
going. I'm on fire then, because that was pretty spicy. Good on you, mate.
Yep. Speaking of spicy, last week was a good episode. I took a lot away from Topher Field, a very insightful guy, and he got me to think about things very, very differently. So it was a good one to have him on, and I've had to listen back to that one a few times, and I'll probably listen back to it a few times more just to be able to absorb everything that he said.
I used the Machiavellian line. I swear I started talking to customers and I just went, the Machiavellian triangle and this, that, the other, and people fit into it. And I just started. I just was using it. I thought it was great. So yeah, Topher's always been, good value, and I just enjoy having, Aussie heroes. Look, we don't have a war to fight as such. You know what I mean? Like, it's not the physical war as such. We don't have a physical enemy, and we don't have our guns and stuff and ready. What do you call it? Onto the breach or whatever they say. But there is a war going on, and it's more of a psychological kind of war. So I guess we have to fight the enemy of like freedom using our minds and I guess social media and our podcasts and stuff like that. So I support all Aussie fighters who are actually getting off their asses and actually doing something, because I've had a few conversations over the past few weeks with different people, and some people are still happy to bend over and take it.
Well, speaking of Aussie fighters, we've got a good Aussie fighter on the show tonight. But before we get there, I need to let everyone know, as we do every week, about Buy Me a Coffee. So if you want to support us and show us some love and send us a few dollars, you can head to Buy Me a Coffee and support us there. Just like Kim did this week, she signed up for a yearly membership, Adam. So,
Kim.
I think now we're going to have to think about what we're going to do for special membership options. So if we have had someone sign up for membership before, we did a special video for that, but we'll have to keep that content going. So if you do want to sign up for membership, you can at Buy Me a Coffee, and that's what Kim's done. So we're going to have to do some extra special content for all our members.
Hey Kim, when you do me that design that I'm still waiting for, I'll buy you a shirt. I'll buy you a shirt with the design.
Speaking of shirts, you can head to t-shirt shop, xcandidates.tshirts.net.au, and get your own XCandidates t-shirt. And Adam, you had a good idea for a competition last week, where if someone takes a photo of them wearing one of our t-shirts, then are we going to come up with a prize or something for people?
I don't know. We can figure it out. I just want to see it all over the web. I just want to see it on Facebook and somebody just doing a selfie with our shirt on, right? In front of Woolworths, and or in front of Coles, I don't know, maybe throwing a bottle of Indonesian milk down on the ground or something. I don't know, but I'm not saying to do anything violent, people, but I just want to see some awesome photos of our shirts and stuff around, and just get the movement happening.
Well, there's a way more important photo competition going on at the moment. It's the NREN Reckless Renewables photo competition. If you head to the NREN website, it's ren.com.au. and take a photo of one of these renewables projects that's causing environmental destruction in your area or an area that you're passing through, or something related to reckless renewables out there, you can head to the NREN website and enter this competition. First prize of $1,000. So everyone there at the National Rational Energy Network are doing some really good stuff in highlighting what's happening out in rural communities, the people that have to face these projects that are happening in their backyards, and everything that's going on there. So if you've got some good images and you want to send them through, you can enter that competition as well. But we probably should get into tonight's interview. As I said, we've got an Aussie battler on, someone that's fighting hard for people in rural communities and people across Australia as well. He's doing some great work, so we thought we'd get him on and hear his thoughts. His name is Wade Northausen. Welcome to the XCandidates, mate.
G'day, Wade.
Yeah, yes, Stephen and Adam, and a big g'day to all the people who are watching, all the viewers. It's really, really good to be here. We do a number of these kind of things, Zoom calls and podcasts, and the interviews are growing, which is really, really great, because that indicates to us that my organisation, Billboard Battalion, what we're doing is starting to have an impact, and people are starting to want to know more and more information, which is really, really heartening from our point of view. So, and I mean, you blokes as well. I'm pretty sure that, you know, the more people that you're getting on, the more that your message is spreading, and the more that your network is spreading, then, you know, that's really a positive for us, and it makes us know that you know, the effort is worth it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely, mate. I've seen you out there. A lot of people are saying that you're really picking up some steam with this Billboard Battalion. Can you let us know maybe a bit about your background, what you did before Billboard Battalion, and how that led you to what you're doing now?
Yep, no worries. So I'm a third-generation farmer, dairy farmer from north central Victoria. We're not farming anymore, haven't done for quite a while, but that's where I started. My family's been involved in the agricultural political scene since the mid-'80s, when we saw things going wrong that were happening to farmers, particularly from the banks. And that led to, you know, becoming involved in all levels of all issues. Got to listen to some of the original conspiracy theorists, started to match up the information that they were saying, and started to match it up with what the actual government was doing and what was happening, and worked out fairly fast that they weren't tinfoil wearing nutters and liars. They were actually onto it. So, you know, went through agri-politics into Aboriginal politics in 97, then moved into the water politics for farming in just after 2000, and then ended up, you know, we've been involved in quite a number of things. The farmer stuff has been huge. Then came along the COVID stuff, which, you know, the people I was talking about before, the original conspiracy theorists said that the term one world government, which I'd never heard of before, they will use pandemics and let's just say injections to take down a huge chunk of the world population. So that's what we started to see in 2021. So in 2022, I formed Billboard Battalion, and the whole purpose was that we were seeing people who were being shut down and censored, and this was to give our side, the honest people, not the government, not the government health officers, not the so-called scientists, and the mainstream media, to give our side a platform so that people could speak honestly, tell the truth, and get that information into the general public arena where, you know, it's good for us to share stuff amongst like-minded people. But, you know, this was a platform to get this into the public. She's been a fair old battle, but it's working. So we've done a lot of convoys around cities and towns, particularly in Victoria and southern New South Wales, and a huge number of meetings, videos, podcasts, the whole deal. And this is now our fourth tour going out around Australia. We've come up from Victoria through New South into Queensland, And now we've had calls to go across to Western Australia. So we're heading over to WA tomorrow. We'll land in Perth tomorrow night at midnight or something like that, and start doing things in Western Australia where the farmers over there in the communities have called us.
I got to say, Wade, you must be doing something right, and you must be over the target, because we've got the trolls in the chat already. This Tom Rogers that has one friend on Facebook. So just keep commenting, Tom. You're helping our analytics. Thanks for that, mate. And look, mate, Wade, you must be doing something right if you're attracting these people.
Well, you go through the thing. I've never been into all these trolls and stuff, and I've never had any of that kind of stuff. But just recently, we've really started to hit our straps, and we're going hard, and we're having impacts. And so now we're starting to attract quite a number of these, whatever they are, people, and we're suspecting that a lot of them are aliases and foreign names, names that aren't really people. And we've had 3 which now are using other people's names. So they're other people in the freedom movement, high-profile people. Now they're coming through as trolls. So, I think, as you said, we're starting to hit some pretty big targets, and we're upsetting some fairly serious people, and we're starting to have an impact, and I think that's really scaring them.
Wade, it definitely does, and I know when we ran in politics, it means you're doing something right, definitely. So you just take it as a pat on the back and keep moving forward. I've just got a quick question here from Neil. I'm going to put it up, and Neil is a fellow One Nation fella, and we've got what do you think of the deregulation that happened to the dairy industry?
Yeah, go Neil. So what that was about was, it was all about this. If you remember, John Howard back in the days was talking about open free trade, and the dairy industry was a regulated industry, and the whole thing was a total scam. And what they were saying was that we need to have open free trade, and the farmers would be much better off. And so a lot of people, and it's been a disaster, an absolute disaster, as have all the dropping of tariffs and protections throughout our country for our industries. And the evidence to that is now overwhelming. But I just want to say one thing, that many people say, well, and this is very important, they say, oh, the dairy farmers voted to have deregulation. So the fact is, no, they didn't. The dairy farmers were told that they are going to have deregulation. That's not an option, but they can either have it with a compensation package or no compensation package. So therefore, obviously, they voted for a compensation package, and now our politicians and all the rest of them who hate farmers say that the farmers voted for it, when in fact, no, they didn't. So answers the question, it is a disaster. It was a disaster for the dairy industry, and that sent a lot of our farmers broke.
Yeah, I was speaking to again, most of my comments come from from my customers who I see daily, while I'm at work. And anyway, you get to talk to people because I've got a big sign on the side of my van and my face and that, and they know I'm in politics. And they're saying that they had a small farm, Central Coast, and it was able to tick over and keep itself going. It was a meat farm, so it was cows, and it wasn't very big, but they were able to just keep it going, and it was, putting a bit of income in their pocket and whatnot. But the parents of my customer were going to have to, pack it up because they make it so hard to, there's so many regulations and so many things going on politically that it's just making it too hard for farmers to do that. And I've also had another customer who was he grew some sort of vegetable, I can't remember, cauliflower or something like that, and he goes, his kids don't even want to get involved in it because they can't even build another dam to grow the farm without all this red tape and all these fees and charges on water, that they can't even collect the water that falls on their land from the rain.
Look, that's correct. And I mean, there's a saying that goes around now, what's the definition of child abuse? To die and leave the farm to the kids. And the agricultural sector generally is in free fall. And this is happening because of government policy. And as we know, government policy now is actually World Economic Forum policy. It is United Nations policy, and it is WHO, World Health Organization policy. So we're seeing right across the country, farmers are going broke. And every time that government makes a new policy, they send more broke. And that's the purpose. And I've seen incredibly successful farmers who are very, very good at what they do. And some of them are the best. And some of them are very technically advanced. They've got all the modern things, and government makes signs a piece of paper, and another tranche of them goes broke.
So we've seen throughout history, farmers are always the first targets of whether it be communism in Russia or other places. Why is that? Why do you have to take the farmers out first?
Because if your example, Stalin or Lenin in Russia or other places throughout the world, starvation is a weapon. Starvation is a way to kill people, a way to control people, a way to take away their power and ability to fight back. So if people are starving, hungry, all they're interested in is getting a feed. That's it. They can't fight. And that's what we're seeing across the board now. This is a part of what I call, the big picture stuff, that different things are happening all over Australia that some people could think of are in isolation. However, they're not. They're part of an overall plan. And whether we're seeing irrigation farmers being wiped out with the Murray-Darling Basin Plan, we're seeing other farmers being taken to task with renewable energy garbage failures that are being built on their properties. We're seeing them taken out with cultural heritage laws, and that's gonna explode very soon. Whether we've seen them wiped out with the requirements to stick to some sort of carbon reduction targets through the other fraud, of course, that's climate change, complete and absolute bogus, dishonest fraud. That's what that is. So these things all come together, and these attack our farmers. And people, what we're about in part is to make people, the community and our farmers understand that that the whole purpose of the climate change, of the cultural heritage stuff, all this is designed to wipe out agriculture completely and permanently. And that's a big part of our messaging that we're taking to the people.
That's right. So Aboriginal politics, with Indigenous affairs and whatnot, that's just basically been weaponized it's used as a weapon to hurt everybody in every sense, actually. So, but especially the farmers at the moment, because farmers need so much land. And I guess, you could probably kick over any rock somewhere on a big enough piece of land and find, a hand blown picture or something like that. You know what I mean? That an Aboriginal tribe might have done back in the past. So they're definitely using Aboriginal affairs to hurt farmers.
Without question. And, I got involved in the Aboriginal politics in 1997 because I started to see that, they were putting up this garbage about, we're here to support the Aboriginal people and we want to do away with racial discrimination. And I thought, that sounds good. That sounds great. However, what we saw with the legislation and the changes and the shift was that they were not interested in doing away with racial discrimination at all. In fact, they were interested in bringing in more racial discrimination, and they were legislating this stuff, and they were putting it into the likes of the media and the education facilities, and they were indoctrinating people to accept the Aboriginal political thing. And if we look back to ATSIC, and we look right now today to some of the so-called Aboriginal leaders, they are nothing more than whipping boys and girls for the likes of the World Economic Forum, and they are being used. And a handful of these, and it doesn't matter, we're talking about farmers, unions, the Aboriginal people, they round up a few of these snout in the troffers, the people who are prepared to sell out their people, and that's what's happening, and they give them an enormous amount of money and power to suck them in. And then they say, for this example, we're doing all this to help the Aboriginal people. Well, hell no, you're not at all. They're using the Aboriginal people and the Cultural Heritage Acts and all the native title stuff. That's a total fraud. So 2 points about that. Number one, the Aboriginal people are getting ripped off, and I'll just say the nicest words I can, and you can imagine the words I like to use.
Yeah,
they are getting absolutely smashed to pieces. The general Aboriginal community is living in, a terrible state. Many of them in third world conditions. That is the plan, because they need them to exploit them, and that's what's happening. Secondly, the purpose of having all this set up is to have the cultural heritage laws and the so-called Aboriginal land councils take control of land, of its usage, of what it can be, what you can do to it, of the water resources, very, very important water resources, and up to and including where your house in the middle of the city will become subject to these. These are shocking things. And this is nothing more than extortion. And it is how the World Economic Forum is going to use the Aboriginal industry, the leaders of the industry, not the general run-of-the-mill people, to take control of your property and eventually get you off it and shut you down, shut your businesses down, and the whole hog. That's what that's about.
I speak to people about. I've spoken to people about this, and people just find it really hard to believe that this kind of thing is actually happening. And I think people fall onto the fact that they purchase their house, even if they own it, own it, right? So they've paid their copious amounts of money to purchase their land, paid off their house over the last 30 years. They want to leave it to the kids, and they just don't believe that somebody could come in and actually take ownership of that land that they're on.
Well, make no mistake, they can. That's what this is about. If they'd have got the voice through last year, you would have seen this on steroids, but they didn't. So therefore, they've been for quite a long time making state and territory laws to bring in the same thing. And now we're seeing the examples. And just before the voice referendum we saw in Western Australia, what would you say? One of the Aboriginal people over there, I don't know if went rogue is the term, but I think they jumped the gun, and they said to some of the local land care people that if they want to plant trees, then they're going to have to shell out, I think it was 2.5 million for a permit to do this. And I'm aware of, and so how would you say, the effluent hit the air conditioner about right at that point, and everybody started to realise how serious this stuff is, and that they in fact had the legal rights to do that. And that's been put through all our parliaments in various forms. And so a big part of what we talk about, whether you're listening to Klaus Schwab and the WEF saying you're going to own nothing, these people are very serious in saying you're going to own nothing. And this Aboriginal stuff is one of the weapons they're going to use to achieve that. And we're getting more and more people who are getting fairly panicky now that their farm or their backyard or their industrial premises somewhere or their business, they're going to be stopped. They're going to be shut down, and they're going to have to pay massive amounts of compensation that will send them broke. And right here in Victoria now, we've got 10 shire councils, and I'm not in Victoria at the minute, I'm in Rockhampton, Queensland at the minute. But in Victoria, Western Victoria, they've got 10 shire councils that the Victorian government have forced these people, these councils, to accept these agreements where they are now seeing these Aboriginal land councils are going to have equal power in the councils and even more over planning issues, water issues, land usage, and all this stuff has to align with this Aboriginal land council's crap. and it is just garbage. It's BS. And I can
So,
tell you right now.
Yeah,
go on.
keep going. Sorry. I was going to say, so, the Jones family wants to go and buy a block of land, a couple of acres, whatever, start to produce a small farm. They'll get banned and not allowed to do it. Yet Woolworths could turn around and say, hey, we're going to go and buy, 300 hectares and going to turn it into a farmland for us to produce cheap food or cheap meat so we can, bleed people of their money by exorbitant pricing. And then what happens is, and that would be approved. Is that roughly how it's kind of going to work?
And so my opinion is this, and I'll just say, about your show tonight, the things that I say, these are my opinions, and I could be right or wrong, and people have the right to make their own decisions. I'm not saying I'm any expert on anything. I'm just saying these are my opinions. Is that the Aboriginal councils, and I must say I'm quite sure there's some people on these Aboriginal land councils who are there for the right reason. So let's not, throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's some really top people who are actually trying to help. But the overall structure of the land council thing as a weapon, you look at the supermarkets, now the companies that own them are part of the World Economic Forum, and so are the land councils. So the supermarkets will be able to get away with anything they want because they're all members of the World Economic Forum. So they're on the same page and they get to work and collaboratively do whatever they want. Whereas if you or I went to do it, you'd be smashed, as would I. And there is the corruption. There's the problem right there. That's what we're dealing with. And, I'll talk a little bit maybe down the track if we get into renewable energy stuff. We'll look at some examples of what's happening in Queensland with these so-called power companies who have been exempted, from what I can see, from every environmental requirement known to man that everybody else has to. But we can deal with that just down the track a little bit.
One of the biggest problems is so much of our population is centralized in big cities, and that's where a lot of the electorates are as well. So we get all these politicians running around promoting these renewable projects or Aboriginal issues and a whole bunch of things that they're affecting rural communities and farmers and people in the outback. That's where it's really a lot of this stuff is playing out, but it's out of sight, out of mind for people that are living in the cities because they just don't see it. They don't see the environmental destruction that happens from solar and wind farm projects and high voltage transmission line projects. They don't see what's happening in land councils where good Aboriginal people that want to own a home can't. They can't even purchase land on these in these native title zones. It's just not allowed. But one of the things that you mentioned as well, and you brought up, was water. What's happening with water? Because from what I understand, it's become privatized. I don't know how you can privatize water. So if it is privatized, who owns it all?
So this is another branch of the attack on agriculture, on Australian family farmers. And so just for people's information, if you bought a farm, it would come with a water right, an allocation that was, it just came with it. It's connected to the land. And what happened was that in 2007, Malcolm Turnbull, as the federal water minister under John Howard, this is a Liberal government, and I would make the statement right now that when we look at the four major political parties, they're all the same. There's no difference. They only give you the illusion there's a difference. And, a lot of the independents are the same thing. They're all working for the WEF. They're all influenced by them. So let's just say that the Liberal Party and the National Party coalition brought in the 2007 Water Act. And then we saw the 2012 Murray-Darling Basin Plan be put into law. And that entailed unbundling of water from land. So what they said was, say a farm came with 100 megs of water that was attached to it. You couldn't move it. And then all of a sudden they said, right, well, we're going to make it so that you can remove the water from the farm, or you can sell that allocation to some other system, or all this kind of stuff. which was a disaster for farmers, absolute catastrophic disaster, because we saw many people would buy a farm, strip the water off it, and then flog that off, and the farm would be dry. That water's gone, and the net result was we've seen massive corporations and international corporations buy huge amounts of Australia's water, Australia's crucial irrigation water. And the other part, and I mean, we don't have the time to really prosecute that, but those are the dot points. And the other one that matters the most, incredibly important, is that when they allowed that to happen, that then gave the federal government the opportunity to create a body called the Commonwealth Environmental Water Holder, who then the government gave unlimited money to go into the brand newly created water market and buy enormous amounts of our critical irrigation water to run out into the ocean. And for people who might think that's unbelievable, no, this is true. And they said, oh, we're doing this for the environment. So this is where this environment thing comes back. But they said, you know, the Murray River's dying because the farmers have taken all the water, these shocking farmers. And they also said that the lower lakes in South Australia and the Coorong is dying because of, once again, all these terrible farmers who have used all the water, when the fact is that's totally incorrect. But that was the excuse and the lies. So that gave the federal government the opportunity to buy around about a third of the available water for farming and run it out into the Southern Ocean. This is our critical, clean water that we need to grow food, and the government, your governments, are taking this water under the World Economic Forum United Nations plan, and they are running it out into the ocean. And they are going to come back and take a hell of a lot more now. They're coming back for another big bite at the cherry now.
So literally channeling the water to run into the ocean. So basically the clean water turns into salt water because it mixes with the water, and you can't use that to grow anything. So they're actually just wasting the warm water. So yes, that is correct. And so we've had times here, and I'll just say they're running it out to sea that fast that the Murray River, in many occasions, is almost flooding. It's almost flooding land because they're running the Murray River at the maximum capacity. They're running as much water, and they're draining out the water that's coming out of the Darling River. They're draining out the water that's coming out of Hume Weir Dam. That's coming out of Eildon. That's coming off the dams up on the, as I said, on the Darling River, and they are looking at ways that they can expand the Murray River, particularly at what they call the Barmer Choke, to get more water down the river. They're trying to work out how they can run it. And if we look at dry conditions, we've had farmers in northern Victoria and the southern Riverina, that's New South Wales, are watching their crops dying because they couldn't get any water because the government had bought it all, and the Murray River was running at maximum capacity, and these farmers are watching their land, their crops die, and they couldn't get one drop of that water. And the government was running it out into the Southern Ocean as fast as they possibly could and draining our water reserves. They're draining our dams. Every bit of it's gone. So they want to turn Australia into a dust bowl?
Yes, quite literally. And I can't stress enough to people how serious this is. And I mean, we're called the driest country on earth, and your governments, and this is the four major parties, and the National Party also agree with this. They are a part of this, and everybody in the country area say, oh, the Labor Party's no good or whatever. The Nationals are every bit as committed to destroying our farmers as the Labor Party and the Greens. The Liberal Party, similar. So, as I said earlier, the Liberal National Party coalition, the ones that created the 2007 Water Act in the first place, which kicked all this off.
See, this is where I have a problem because, as I said before, most of the politicians are centralised. Most of the electorates are centralised around city areas. I mean, when it comes to, say, for example, an electorate like Parkes, it covers such a vast. It's almost a quarter of New South Wales, and you get just one MP to represent you. And they may be a good MP, they may be a good person that wants to represent you, but what can they do in a parliament with, full of 150 other people? So what can farmers do? That's why I really like what you're doing with Billboard Battalion. You're getting around, you're spreading the message. I know a lot of farmers can't do that, but is there any way that you suggest that farmers can push back and let people, specifically in the cities, let them know what's happening out there? Raise these issues with them, because none of these things ever get taken to elections. I can't remember an election on privatising water. I can't remember going to an election and deciding whether we want a digital ID or a disinformation bill or a treaty with the WHO or any of these things. That never gets taken to an election. It all just happens, as I said, out of sight, out of mind. And there's people out there that just don't get a voice, they don't get any political recourse, and they probably feel very isolated and vulnerable and that no one's representing them. So what can they do? How can they do similar to what you're doing?
So outstanding question, Stephen, okay, for a start. And that's what we are addressing right now with our tours, and this is one of the primary objectives of Billboard Battalion. So I can say for a start, okay, so you got the Parkes electorate. Yep, that's the situation. What can we do? First of all, I'd like to say to all and sundry that the people in the city are not our enemies. And what we see is a lot of the politicians try and create that scenario.
Yes.
We were at, Nick and myself from Billboard Battalion were at some meetings just recently where they were talking about the electrical infrastructure, the renewable infrastructure. And we were listening to Dr. Anne Webster, and she is the federal member for Mallee in Victoria. And her whole thing was to try and ask people constantly, what do you think about the city people? What do you think versus the country people? That was her deal. It was not about trying to come up with answers. It was about creating that wedge, that divide, making it us versus them. And in all issues, this is what politicians do. They try and create two entities that fight against each other. So I condemn Dr. Anne Webster. I think you're a disgrace. You're not interested in coming up with solutions. And this was our observations on the ground. We were there. So, I can say that's my opinion, but that is exactly, and the whole thing's on video. We've got that. So secondly, I've been involved for a long, long time in many protests into the city areas with agricultural issues. And we have found the city people to be fantastic. The whole problem is that if they know the issues, and this is where we're getting into trouble. So Billboard Battalion does a lot of public speaking in Melbourne metropolitan area, and with enormously great results, because people care about country people, they care about our farmers, they care about their food only if they know about it. So therefore, there's the first point. The second point to be made is, what can we do about it? A lot. The whole thing of what we're about is to try and get our farmers, our agricultural sector, to unite as one, because we have enormous political and social power. If we can get all our farmers on the same page, fighting the same battle and going in the same direction, and that's turning out to be a very tough gig, but we're working on that, because if we can get the farmers all together to combine our resources, to combine, and this is some of the things that I talk about in terms of Billboard Battalion. There's no one else in Australia who's doing what Billboard Battalion is doing. There's no one even close to what we're doing. So one of the things I say all the time, get onto billboardbattalion.com and throw in some money at us. You know, we've got a huge expenses. We're pretty well self-funded. We do get some donations, but we're pretty well self-funded. And if we had a lot more money, we could go ballistic. And we get calls to go all over Australia and present, because people want to hear what's going on now. They love our style. They love our honesty and our strength. And we need funding to achieve this. But so the purpose of what I'm saying is we go out into the agricultural communities and we also try and combine city and country together like this. But we can make a huge difference. We've got the political power if we can get everyone on the same page. And the secret to that is to get everyone, whether you're farmers or city or whatever, to understand there is a credible threat to their lives, to their owning property. That's all about to be taken off them. Their ability to make a living. They're going to lose everything. And that's the primary objective of our mission, is to get people educated, to understand the situation, and to come on board under Billboard Battalion's leadership, because we are the primary force in this. We're so far ahead of anyone else, it's not funny. And
you spoke about the farmers not coming together, and that they need to come together. Why is that not happening? I mean, I know there's the Farmers Federation out there, and supposedly they're a strong lobby group. Are they not working efficiently? Is there some divide amongst farmers? Like what's happening out there?
So, and that's a very, very good point. Let's just say the entire farming community, if they had a signal, if somebody was sounding the alarm, then you could unite. But when we look at the National Farmers Federation, like you just mentioned, I was a branch president in the VFF, the Victorian Farmers Federation, and United Dairy Farmers of Victoria. I stood for the state president's job of the VFF in 2016. I didn't win that because I believe that the powers that be cannot afford to have me in that role, because I said we will go to battle for our farmers as opposed to selling them out, which is what is happening. So the NFF, my opinion based on my experience, the president currently is a bloke called David Johinke, right? And I stood against David Johinke for the president's job of the VFF back in 2016. Now, my opinion is that the leaders, and in particular the NFF, but the leaders of a lot of these so-called farmer representative lobby groups, they're not there to fight for their members. They're there to use that as a springboard into either politics or to get on a job as what I call professional board jumpers. And that's to get into all these companies and just go from one board to the other board to the other board, and that's their career. Yeah. So where we should have our farmer representative organisations ringing the bell and saying what Wade is saying is correct. This is happening. They're saying farming's great. It's never been better. The inefficient farmers are going to go broke because they're the ones that won't adapt. And so you look at the NFF, their primary thing is climate change, and it's a lie. It's a fraud. Climate change is garbage. But they're saying this is our biggest threat. We've got to deal with climate change. So my opinion, the entire NFF should be disbanded. I have some very strong views about what should happen after that, but we're probably best off not to go there. But our so-called industry leaders like these, and this is no different to the trade union movements, it's no different to all this sort of stuff. They are selling us out, and I can tell you as a fact, because I was there, in the Victorian Farmers Federation, I was a branch president, and I also got voted onto the VFF Water Council. And the VFF supported water policy that destroyed many of their members, just wiped them out. So my opinion is that these people are nothing more than political hacks. They just basically rubber stamp what the government wants them to do, because I think that many of these people at the minute. They think they're well off. They think they're doing pretty good. And they like to rub shoulders with the politicians and the bureaucrats and all this. And I think they like to look at all the companies and placate them. And I think that a big part of it is they have to be seen that they will squash the little people. They have to be seen to be ruthless. They have to be seen to be able to take orders. And if that wipes out their constituents or their members, so be it. So that's just a little bit of light reading on that.
Yeah. You mentioned the major parties. A lot of people will bring up minor parties like One Nation, the Libertarians, the UAP when they were floating around. But I've got a very interesting, probably a good question here from Chu. Wade, what is your opinion on the shooters, fishers and farmers? It's a party that we don't really hear too much about here, at least on this channel. What do you think of the SFF?
So my opinion, once again, I haven't had a lot to do with them, but from what I've seen, they've turned on us. That's my opinion. I don't see them coming out on the front foot and saying what I'm saying. I don't see them ringing up me and saying, well, you are the primary agricultural advocacy group in Australia. What do you think about this? What can we do to help you? What policies do you think we should chase? So I am incredibly disappointed and disgusted from a group that appeared to be so great at the start. And once again, these are my opinions. I could be wrong. But, you know, we are at the minute, we're on the death knell. We're at the crossroads in history right now of losing everything. Where are the shooters and fishers party? Who the hell knows? Because I have no idea where they are.
They've gone fishing in the water that the Murray-Darling's running out into the ocean. What I was going to say, can people in the city, like, you know, me and Stephen, you know, for example, you know, like helping the farmers and going like independent, like, you know, we see advertisers like for, you know, small businesses like Our Cow and things like that. Should we start buying direct from like independent farmers?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you know, we used to do that years ago. In our area in the Goulburn Valley there, you know, you'd get milk, meat, fruit, vegetables off the other farmers in the region. You know, you could go and buy pretty well whatever you wanted directly from it. A lot of the orchards had, you know, sales at the gate. The vegetable growers had sales at the gate. You know, you could go and buy sheep and cattle off farmers, and you could go and buy eggs and milk and the whole deal. That virtually doesn't happen now. They've virtually shut that down. I think there's a bit up around the Sunraysia, around Swan Hill, Mildura. You can still do that kind of thing, and probably other areas too. But we need to get back to that, absolutely. But the primary message about that is you have to have the farmers there in the first place. Yeah. And I keep going back to the baseline with anything. You know, we've seen a lot of people over the last 10 years, there's been a number of political issues, social issues, you know, the vote on same-sex marriage. Let's just say, for example, there was such enormous resources and people got so head up about it and so involved in all that kind of thing, when I would say maybe you should be putting your efforts into what we're talking about, not worry about that, because you can have as much rights and whatever as you want, but if they're rounding you up and killing you, that's not going to really help you very much. So forget about getting your head in things that are, you know, pointless if you're not going to be here anymore to enjoy it or to use it. So therefore, we need to focus our political and social power on certain issues. And this is one of the things that a lot of the other groups over the years have said to me, oh, Wade, you know, you need to be on the same page. And I say to them, well, hell yeah, we need to be on the same page, but it has to be the right page, because there's no point on all being on the same train that's going over the cliff.
Does it make you, from some of the footage and stuff I've seen, like from the farmers in Europe and stuff like that, does it make you feel good that eventually it can happen? could Australian farmers form those big united fronts like we see happening over in overseas in Europe?
Absolutely. Yes, it is. But we have to understand the politics of it. And I'll say this, I want to make this statement, I'll make it all the time. We get lots and lots of farmers who, I'll go to meetings, I'll run meetings and over the years. And I say to farmers, tell me what's the most important single element to your farming success? And of course, the first one is rain. Okay. And the second one might be genetics. It might be fertilizer. It might be markets. And I say to people, the whole lot is pointless because the one thing that matters the most is politics. Because as we've seen, and I'll probably jump around a little bit here, but with regard to, I talk a lot about the designed destruction of the red meat industry. And we're starting to make a little bit of leeway now with a few cockies that are starting to listen. But I say to them, if you look at what happened when the Labor Party banned the live beef export out of Perth, heading for Indonesia, overnight, one man signed one piece of paper and the entire top-end cattle trade went crashing down. So I want people to understand it doesn't matter how good a cocky you are, how good a farmer, how much you want to adapt, how much you want to be efficient, all this other crap like that. The politicians can stop you in a matter of minutes and make you unviable, send you broke. And this is the main messaging that we're putting out to everybody there. So, these are the dot points. Forget about all the wishy-washy stuff. Understand that they can do exactly what I'm telling you they can do and get with the program because they're picking us off one by one and very, very soon they're going to take the whole lot out. And I suppose the final point to make on that, it's incredibly hard to get the entire farmer demographic to work as one because we've got a lot of hierarchical and social levels. Whereas some people reckon that they're going really, really well. They might be generational farmers. They might be really good. And they think that they're sitting pretty. Well, that's about to end. The whole lot of them are going to come crashing down. But the other issue is the politicians and the bureaucrats. They go out into the rural areas and they buddy up to some of the, the bigger farmers or whatever, the more influential ones. And they get them on side and they kiss their backside and they pat them on the head and tell them what a good boy they are. And then they roll over and play games and play dead and whatever. So therefore the ball carriers, if you like, or the individual leadership people in throughout the industry and the region are sucked in by these politicians. And so they resist anything that we try and do to fight it. Well, they're starting to lose. They're starting to get cracked open. But here's a big part of your problem. This is where we need to work on.
We probably should bring up your bus, which is the driving force behind the Billboard Battalion. And this is what you're traveling around the country at your own expense as well. You're putting in your own money and your own funds. I'm sure you're picking up a few donations along the way, but you're basically putting your money where your mouth is by doing this. But and you said that you're up in Rockhampton at the moment. I know that you've been to Emerald and other places, but you're originally from Victoria, so you're doing a lot of traveling, around the country. What is the feeling that you're getting on the ground from people that you're speaking to? And is there any experiences that you've had with a particular person or experience that you've had in a particular town that really stands out to you?
Well, first of all, the bus that you put up on the screen there, we no longer have that one. We have a different bus, which currently is in Brisbane right now, getting all the signage done for it. So, 7 experiences. Look, you've got people who, and yes, I suppose the most important thing to take away is we get a lot of people who say, look, Wade, we're really behind you, you're doing a great job and all that sort of thing. And they'll go home and say, rightio, we've been to a meeting, we'll listen to Billboard Battalion. They're doing a great job and everybody feels good. Secondly, every now and again, you'll get somebody who'll say, right, well, we'll put a few bucks in and we'll do that. And that's great. We're really looking for some big sponsors, some big donors. But some of the most important responses, Stephen, are this. And this doesn't matter whether, we've done this in Melbourne, in metropolitan Melbourne, with a lot of the meetings we run there. We do a lot of meetings in metropolitan Melbourne, or whether you're out in the country, rural and regional areas. I get a lot of people who listen to a talk that I do, might be an hour and a half, could be 2.5 hours. And I very, very often get people come up to me afterwards and say, listen, we've heard what you said and it's terrifying. And a lot of people will come up, they burst into tears, or they're bawling in the crowd. I can see them, they're crying their eyes out. They're distressed. And I must say, of all the people who do that, I have never had one who has said, stop doing this. Every one of these people, and I must say that a lot of the people who have this response are Aboriginal. Because I talk a lot about the Aboriginal, what happens in their culture and with the law and what's happening to them and so on. And other people about general stuff. And every one of them will say, I burst into tears. I just wanted someone to hug me. I was terrified. You frightened the hell out of me, but whatever you do, this message is so important. Do not stop saying it. You must continue. And these are people who are distraught, saying, we didn't know this. You must keep going. And I must say that I went to, I don't know if you remember, back in 2000, they had what they called Reconciliation 2000 or Corroboree 2000. It was all about, in the year 2000, they were supposed to have all this reconciliation stuff going on. And I went to a lot of the meetings, a big one in Shepparton, Victoria. And I stood up there after listening to all the crap and all the garbage. And I said, and I did think I may have got stabbed or might not have made it out alive. But I stood up and I said, well, listen, here's the deal. The Aboriginal people are being exploited and used. You've got to stop acting as victims. You've got to stop allowing people to treat you like victims. You've got to get some pride, lift your head up, have a crack at some soap and water, get a job, and get on with it. And I thought, well, that's going to throw the old cat amongst the pigeons.
Yeah.
However, a number of the white people had a go at me, which didn't work out that well for them. But I must say that a large number of the Aboriginal elders, the older people, came up to me afterwards and said, look, Wade, what you're saying is absolutely correct. Our kids are in trouble. Our people are being exploited. So whatever you do, you must keep saying what you're saying. You must keep fighting for us. And I thought that was a bizarre situation right there. Because I'm probably as white as it gets, and I'm not Aboriginal and whatever.
That's
you
been
absolutely hit the nail on the head, mate, because I'm reading Warren Mundine's book, and throughout the whole book, he's just hammering that point. The only way that you're going to lift Aboriginal people out of these desperate areas, as you said, some areas are like third world countries, the way that they're unfortunately having to live. It's by getting them involved in, getting in the economy, getting them a job, getting them out there in the workforce, giving them something to strive for and to work for. And it's not about just throwing the money, which a lot of these government policies are all about. You just throw the money and hope the problem goes away. And oftentimes that money doesn't even get to them. You've got to get them engaged in the workforce. And that's something that Warren Mundine has been pushing for decades now. And sometimes he gets a bit of traction with certain politicians and other times he gets nowhere with them. But a lot of people like Warren in the Aboriginal community are saying exactly what you just said.
Well, I was saying this in 1997, and I can look back at a lot of the letters to the editors and a lot of because back then a lot of the newspapers did articles on what I was saying, did a lot of radio interviews, some on TV. And I look back at those articles now, which I've still got, and the letters that I wrote to the schools and the education departments about, they were starting to indoctrinate the kids with all this crap. And the letters that I wrote back in 1997, 98, 2000 could have been written yesterday, because the things that I predicted were going to happen are happening right now.
Yeah.
And, I really want to speak to this, use this opportunity, and I say this quite often in my presentations. With regard to the Aboriginal situation, it is an exploitation. It is a deliberate exploitation, and policies are created to deliberately keep a lot of these people living in third world countries. I've seen these places. I've been there. I've worked around all these places, and you see the shocking, terrible situation that's happening. And nothing would sum it up better than this. When we went on our tour up to New South and Queensland back in September last year, 2023, this was not long before the referendum on the Voice. And I was having a lot to say about that. And we were just coming out of Echuca Moama, heading up to Tamworth. And we had a Zoom meeting booked with Channel 7 up at Tamworth. And anyway, the Sheila gets on there and she's asking me all these questions. And she was quite annoyed that I was speaking against the Voice because I have a public platform. So one of the questions that she asked me was, does Billboard Battalion have an Indigenous person in it? And I'm not exactly sure of the exact words. Basically, I said, no. Why would I need an Indigenous person in Billboard Battalion? And they were on about, well, you're going to speak on Aboriginal stuff and culture and all this sort of thing, blah, blah, blah. You're only a white man, more or less. And I'm paraphrasing to some degree. And so I said to her, here's the deal. When you talk about this Aboriginal culture, this BS, this crap, all that is a way to keep Aboriginal people isolated and victims of crime, extreme crime. That's its only purpose. So I can tell you right now, I don't need to be an Aboriginal bloke to tell you that living a life where being raped, we're being bashed, we're being murdered, that's not a culture. I don't have to be Aboriginal to tell you that's not culture. Mm-hmm. That is criminal activity.
Yep.
And so I don't need to be Aboriginal to tell you that. Any person with half a brain and an ounce of decency would be able to tell you that. So anyway, we, as far as I'm aware, the interview that I did with Channel 7, which lasted, I don't know, might have been 13 minutes, something like that, they didn't put it to air because my opinion is they were trying to trip me up. They were trying to get somebody who they could brand as a white racist.
Yeah, supremacist. Yeah.
But I must say, I don't know if you've ever interviewed Michael Gray Griffiths from Cafe Locked Out, but in that tour, Michael and Kelly were travelling with us in their bus. And when we were setting this interview up to do with this Sheila from Channel 7, Michael said, let's live stream this interview as you're doing it.
So good.
And brilliance, absolutely brilliance. So we live streamed it and had massive views and such incredible comments. So I'm pretty sure Channel 7 wouldn't have been too happy about that.
No.
But, and we had the discussion prior, my team and that said, why you want to talk to Channel 7? You know they're not going to run it to air. You know they're just going to try and trip you up. You know that they're not genuine. You know that they're not in the business of telling the truth. You know they are running political agendas. And once again, that's our opinion. And I said, well, they've contacted us. So at the very least, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's treat Channel 7's contacting us as being genuine. Let's imagine for a second they really are interested in the truth, and they really are interested in what's in the best interest of the Aboriginal people. And as it turned out, I was wrong. And I'm very, very disgusted that what we thought would happen did. But at the end of the day, thanks to Michael, that went live, and it got an incredible amount of response. So this is what is happening with your mainstream media.
Yeah.
This is what's happening with all the people who think that they're on some sort of crusade or some garbage about, our magnificent Indigenous peoples. These people got no clue. And I'll just finish that segment up by saying I was at a meeting in Bendigo last year, and they had a couple of Aboriginal presenters. And at the end of the presentation, I asked this bloke a question. And the facilitator at the meeting, who's as white as I am, jumped on it. He said, I'm going to shut this down. We're not going to have this question. We're not doing this. We're not doing that. And I thought, well, this is not my gig, so it's not my place to arc up and fire back. But afterwards, I spoke to this bloke and I said, mate, what's wrong with the questions I was going to ask you? He said, nothing. He said, I'm quite happy to talk about the things you want to talk about, answer these questions. He said, and his words, quote, it's always the white people that shut it down.
Yeah.
I'm not joking. Yeah. So anybody who's listening to this, these are the facts. Like it or not, these are the facts.
Well, the white people, let's call them out for what they actually are. They're cultural Marxists. That's what they really are.
And we saw it a lot during the referendum, the campaign. There was like literally middle-aged white people arguing, right, the yes campaign against Aboriginal people, like Aboriginals themselves are saying they're going to vote no. So you'll have just say, okay, that's your opinion. Thank you very much. What instead of sitting there and trying to preach the yes to Aboriginal people who are saying no because they would know probably more about it, right? Maybe listen to the Aboriginal person who's saying why they're voting no, and maybe it might change your opinion as to why you should not be wearing the yes campaign. You should be wearing the no campaign shirt. Like it's just, it just seems to be middle class white people are just starting to really ruin stuff, I guess.
Well, absolutely, and this is a critical message really that needs to be got out. And almost like, I don't know, a bit over a year ago, we were doing a meeting in Melbourne, and this woman came up and spoke to us, and she said she's good friends with someone who knows Jacinta Price. And I said, right, they said, we'll get in contact with you. Now they send emails and stuff. I never heard from Jacinta Price or Warren Mundine, but I'm quite open to having a yarn to them, because I think that we're probably at the point where we need to cut the crap and just shoot straight. And that's exactly what I do. That is what Billboard Battalion does. And, I think there's certainly an opportunity for us to work with some of the Aboriginal leaders in Jacinta and Warren and say, let's put this together. Let's get things together. Let's build some sort of a force and grow it into something that's going to have impact, because, we're speaking all over the country. We're getting bigger and bigger platforms, and, the amount of Aboriginal, particularly women, who come up to me after we'll do a meeting or a presentation, actually no, blokes as well. I was just talking to Nick here. We've seen a number of blokes who will come up and break down and cry. These people are probably 60 years old. And so this is the reality. So, we need to knock out the corporate Aboriginal so-called leaders, because they're not leaders at all. They're sellouts, most of them, and once again, my opinion.
Yeah.
So, I think there's an opportunity for anybody who's having a crack, and obviously Jacinta and Warren are doing that. So we're quite happy to be contacted by them and have a yarn and see what we can do together, because, you know, we're operating through a lot of more and more remote areas. And I can tell you right now, I've seen a lot of this stuff. I know a lot of these people, and they need people fighting for them, not the corporate liars and the clowns like in the political parties who make out that they care about Aboriginal people, but they actually couldn't give a stuff, and they're actually selling them into catastrophic trouble.
Look, thank you for your time tonight, Wade. But before we let you go, I need to ask you about property rights. What's happening with property rights and farming?
So, I mean, there's a couple of things to look at there. You know, we do talk about people are going to lose their property, as Klaus Schwab tells you. You'll own nothing. Yeah. I think one of the big issues is that we're seeing all the paper land titles are being destroyed, and we're seeing people signed up to a digital registry of land titles. And as we hear Klaus Schwab saying, you know, we're very susceptible to cyber attack. And what I can see happening is they're going to say, well, we've had some big cyber attack, and all of a sudden your land titles are gone. Yeah. That's it, game over. Secondly, the cultural heritage stuff and the environmental laws are all going to make it so you cannot farm. You cannot own your house. You can't own any land. And if we look at some of the stuff that's going on with the WEF, they're in the business of saying we're going to have human-free zones. They're building an electricity system that is going to collapse. It cannot possibly work. So that'll give them the excuse to start cleaning out areas and saying we've got to move people out of these areas into the cities. So that's just a very, very brief couple of dot points on land titles and land ownership. And I can tell you right now, a lot of the farmers that we're dealing with are talking with these power companies that say we're going to shut the gate, not let them on. Well, you are going to lose. You need to form up with us. You need to come on board with Billboard Battalion and say this is a part of a global scheme. We all need to unite and push that issue, because we've seen from our enemies how to do it. They all are on the one page. They all deliver the one messaging. None of them argue and fight amongst each other publicly. They show a united front. And that is how we need to do it. And I say to everybody, if you don't come on board with us and you don't do what we want to do and you don't fight the politics the way we want to fight, you are going to lose. Because over the last 40 years, I've been involved heavily in ag politics. I've learnt a lot of the things to do, and I've learnt even more things what not to do. And the politicians are playing them like a fiddle. That's what's happening. Now, we found that out with all the water stuff. The politicians will tell you they're fighting for you. They won't support the things that are getting into you. We support our farmers, and it doesn't matter what the four major parties are. They've already sold you off before they even walk in the door to tell you what they're going to do. With this happened with the North-South pipeline. The Labor Party went to the election in Victoria in, I think it was 2006, saying they will not draw water from the Goulburn River north of the Great Divide. They will not do that. At that time, they were already ordering the pumps and the pipes. So they get played. We got played. They told us they would not support the Murray-Darling Basin plan. And then at the end of the day, the coalition in Victoria signed us up to it. So the politicians will play you like a fiddle. They will roll you around in the dirt and the mud, but they're telling you how great you are. They befriend you. This is called narcissism. So our farmers need to understand how to play the game. They need to understand the rules of the game. They need to understand we have the power and we can win this no problem at all. But if they keep playing the game the way the politicians want, you are going to lose. It is that simple.
Have you heard anything about this nature positive plan? I've only heard about it through the week. I don't know. I can't comment on it, but have you heard of it?
Not that I can put my finger on, no. No, I can't. And I mean, without seeing it, I really can't comment other than to say, if it goes in the trajectory that all the rest of this garbage has gone in, it will not be good.
I was going to say they called it nature positive. It's probably going to end up a negative. Let's just face it. Seriously.
Yeah,
that's right.
We'll put that out to our faithful audience. If you know anything about it, let us know, and we can probably do another or future episode on that. We'll dig deep into that, because it came up in a meeting I was at through the week, and I'm like, I haven't heard of that, but that doesn't sound good.
Well, can I just say in closing, I don't know how much more we've got, maybe a minute or a couple of minutes, I'm not sure. But if we look at a lot of the so-called renewable energy infrastructure, in Victoria alone, if that gets to fruition, the government reports say that will occupy 70% of Victoria's available farmland. First. Secondly, if you look up to Queensland, where they're looking at putting in these big wind turbines, they are going to flatten mountains. They're just going to bulldoze them. So they're going to flatten the mountains, all the trees, all the environment, with complete disregard to anything. These people are virtually, from what I can see, they're exempt from any of the environmental laws. The governments who tell you that they want to protect the environment, hell no, they're going to smash it to pieces in enormous quantities. And the third point is, where the hell are the Greens? You can't, on your farmland, under the environmental garbage, you can't virtually chop a thistle. You can't cut a burr virtually. It's getting to that point without all this planning and permits, and you just can't do it. Well, where are these slimy Greens?
Well, I was just going to say, it's a bit of a master stroke, because it's a master stroke by how they've done and how they've formulated this big, plan with the windmills and all this renewable energy stuff. Because you're right, it falls into, renewable energy. It's good for the environment. Therefore, they don't give a crap what you do to the environment to make that happen. And so that it's actually, you'd almost kind of wish you came up with the idea and invented it, or were able to make money off it, because it was kind of like, it's a genius thing. I mean, I guess it's an ingenious, super villainous plan, that they've come up with. Like they're exempt from. They don't even have to worry about what they do with the waste of the windmills and the turbines and the solar panels and stuff like that. Like they don't have. Whereas fossil fuels, okay, they have to have a plan from start to finish. So from getting it out of the ground to disposing of the byproduct. It doesn't have to happen with this renewable energy stuff. So that we all know that there's, windmill, the fan, the blades. We all know that after 10 years they're done if they don't get broken beforehand. Then they just get chopped off and set up in some landfill, and no one cares about it, even though they're completely toxic to the environment anyway. So it's a wonderful, it's an amazing plan, and sometimes you just wish that you came up with it.
That's right. I mean, some of these people are so evil, but once again, the question has to be asked: where's Adam Ban? Do they have the Greens in their pocket? Are the Greens on the payroll?
Of course they are.
And
that's in my opinion.
That's
I know, but in my opinion as well, where are they?
So that's exactly right. We are seeing enormous environmental destruction. Like, these things are huge, and the amount of environment they're going to have to just bulldoze into a heap to build this stuff is enormous. It's catastrophic. And where are all these Greens? All these so-called city-based Greens. Where are you? You would have a go at farmers. If farmers want to plant a crop, or they want to chop down a few trees, or you get people who have got trees hanging over their house, which is going to one day break off and crash through the house, kill people, or you have incredible fire danger. You want to trim up a few trees, you'll end up virtually being hung, drawn, and quartered. But these other power companies, they have, appears to me, to be complete exemption. So where are these greenies? Because I'm here to tell you what you just spoke about. the renewable energy supposedly being clean and green. Well, it's not. People are lied to. The environmental effects of all this stuff is disastrous. And the biggest kicker is at the end of the day, it is going to fail. They are blowing up our coal-fired power stations and they're building something that cannot possibly do what they're telling you it can do. And it's not going to be cheaper. Your politicians are barefaced lying to you. And the Greens. I'd love the opportunity to debate Adam Bandt on this issue. Let's do a live. I'll meet him anywhere. Let's do a live. Let's debate him. Any of the politicians. And I say, if there's any sitting politician who disagrees with what I'm saying, I'm prepared to debate you live to air anywhere, anytime. It's anything I'm talking about.
As long as they can fly their private jets to the same location and use separate planes, they'll definitely come.
Well, it's very important that they can fly their private jets around. They're telling people you can't afford to buy food and you're not going to be able to feed your kids. You won't be able to take them down the street. You won't be able to provide the things they need. But so long as they've got their jets, old Elbows, he's really conserving energy. I can see that. He's doing a great job. So this thing is a joke. I mean, and the people just buy this stuff. Yeah. The level of indoctrination is so incredible that these people just lap this up. I mean, you've still got people in Melbourne who say to you that the Premier just a couple of years ago, in the middle of this so-called pandemic, the Premier saved their lives.
Oh, yeah.
With all the lockdowns and the forced injections and the businesses that went broke and the jobs that were lost and the people who commit suicide, you've still got some of these clowns who say the Premier saved our lives.
Yeah.
So, and you got up a mugshot here of old Adam Bandt, yeah.
Yeah, put that one back up.
Yeah. This is
I told you, they just set a location where they can fly a private jet to it.
So I'd say to you, Adam Bandt here, I think he comes from Melbourne. Where are you, mate? Hey, where are your greens? Are they only green because it's greenbacks? You only want money? Is that the case? You might not be aware, but they're bulldozing our country. Do you understand that, Adam? And all your other Green senators and all these other, I won't describe them how I want to, but where are you, mate? Maybe you should tell the Australian people, get into the debate, get into the argument, push your case, push your numbers and your figures, because you can't. That's why. This thing is going to collapse and they're going to smash down incredible amounts of Australian environment to do it. So where the hell are you?
Graham's got a funny comment. Albo Sleazy should be flying in electric aeroplanes. too well.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're seeing now the full-scale collapse of the so-called electric vehicle market. We're seeing some of the biggest companies in the United States are going, well, we're out. We're not doing this anymore. And I did see some comments about the electric vehicles saying, look, when you get into cold conditions, if you run out of power on these electric vehicles and wherever that turns out to be, you're going to freeze because, the whole thing stops. There's no heating. But I'll say it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek. Fortunately, it appears that the electronic vehicles have a built-in heating system.
Yeah.
Like they just seem to, at will, burst into flames.
Yeah.
So, that'll keep you warm enough for a little while. So when we see a lot of the reports from firefighters around the world, they say when these things catch fire, and there's a huge number of them that do, you virtually can't put them out.
So they've got to submerge them. I've heard reports where that happened in America, and they just dug a trench next to it, filled it with water, and just pushed the car into it and just let it burn.
Yes. And, from the point of view of, like, I'm an ex-Country Fire Authority brigade captain in Victoria, and I've never seen stuff like this that you can't put out, But the other thing, of course, to keep in mind for the people who think they're doing a great job for this stuff, right? I'd like to ask them, have they ever seen the miners that mine the cobalt
The
that
kids.
goes into these systems. Have you ever seen them? Because a lot of them are kids living in third world countries. They're virtually slave labor. And they're digging this stuff up by hand.
Yeah.
Not that you would care, because if you're that, I don't know, if you're sold on the buying electric vehicles in the first instance, then I have some very serious concerns. But, you know, if you think you're trying to do some good, have a look at the kids and the slave labor that they're using to dig this stuff up. Yeah, have a look at that.
Save a kid, don't buy an electric car.
Exactly right. Yes. And that is, you know, we banned that sort of stuff here a million years ago.
Yeah.
And I'll guarantee if any of these people who buy these electric cars, you tell your grandkids or your kids to go and work in these mines, digging this stuff up out of the rock by hand, let's see what they'd say about that.
Yeah.
So the entire thing is a fraud. It's a disaster. And at the end of the day, the powers that be are saying you're not going to own a car at all.
That's it.
And this is the direction. And I must say, we went to a meeting in Bendigo in North Central Victoria a couple of years ago, maybe 18 months, I'm not sure. And it was a seminar, and I believe it was put on by the Bendigo Shire, which tells you everything you need to know from the start, really. And they had these presenters there talking about these electric cars, and they said, there will be no questions. No questions will be allowed of the presenters about these electric cars. And Bendigo is targeted to be a smart city. It is targeted to be completely electric vehicles by the not too distant future. So, you know, I have some grave concerns over the Shire in Bendigo. But, you know, we're careering down a massive big slope, and we're heading for the cliff.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think we're at the 59th minute of the 11th hour here.
Yeah.
If we don't get things tidied up, if we look at the World Health Organization pandemic treaty that's coming up at the end of May, if Australia signs up to that, then I think we're cooked. I think it's over. If they bring in the digital currency and it takes effect, I think it's over. The digital ID. So, you know, we now have the last opportunity to fix this. That's what Billboard Battalion's about. And we need to understand the Achilles heel of these terrorists is our politicians, because they are the ones who go into Parliament and vote to give them the legislation they need to attack us and wipe us out. So what we're saying is we, the people, need to go tactical, and we need to put together groups and committees to start to really personally push back on the politicians themselves individually, because going to Canberra or whatever is a waste of time.
Yeah.
So we need to get in their face, not physically. I would absolutely not support any physical violence.
No.
But we need to put pressure on these people to make them know the filthy peasants have turned up at the castle gates and they've got the pitchforks and the torches. So this is how we will win. This is what we must do.
And you said they're voting for this stuff, but they never take it to an election. They never take the WHO treaty to an election. I mean, we had Kevin Lockray on recently, and he said all international treaties should be taken to a plebiscite. When's that ever going to happen? I mean, it's something that's in the national interest. So I think we probably should start a push for plebiscites for treaties. And do you think the Australian people would vote for the WHO treaty? I don't think so. Maybe some people, but
well,
I think the guy who lives up the street from me walking down the road to fill up his petrol cans with a mask on would.
And look, this is the whole point. I was astounded that we voted no for the last referendum. I was absolutely dumbfounded. And here's the problem with referendums and plebiscites is that you have to rely on the average population to vote on it. And the average population can only vote on the information they have.
That's right.
So my opinion is all treaties that have been made in, let's just say, the last 30 years should be scrapped. and there should be a moratorium on any plebiscite or referendum until we can put in place some sort of a system, some kind of a way of measuring that the Australian people are receiving balanced and quality information. You know, we must have some scale to measure that, because the media is absolutely corrupt. Most of the politicians are absolutely corrupt, and the information that you're getting is totally wrong. So we're in a bit of a tough spot at the minute. And I think, you know, that's one of the critically important things that we're doing, is to bring to the people a very straight shooter, dead set, honest, smack down the line, quality, honest information, because that's what we're missing. And, you know, we've got our kids going through the school system. The school system now is a basket case. I don't think that the school teachers who teach the curriculum, I don't think they should be left alone in the same room as anyone's kids, even their own, because I think they're just dangerous. I have great respect for people who have the decency and the integrity to pull their kids out of school and homeschool them. But my opinion is we need to take back our schools. And in terms of the universities, they are just extremist, communist indoctrination centres. That's all they are. And I know many people have been through university. I've copped a bit of flack from a few of them, the ones that can't think. And I must say that I know a lot of people who have come out of university, and the testimony to their incredible intelligence and strength of character is that they've gone through uni and they've come out and they can still think straight. And I think that that's an incredible bonus to them and shows their strength. But sadly, many of the people come out of uni can't and don't have no interest in thinking properly or rationally. All they can do is follow the indoctrination plan, nod their head when they're commanded to, and push this rhetoric. And that's a very, very big problem.
I've got one last question, and before we get to our final segment, I know you've been traveling the country and you're probably ready for bed right now.
We don't worry about bed, mate. We don't worry about bed. We're good to go anywhere, anytime. We don't worry about that, because there's going to be plenty of time for that later.
That's good. But as we said before, you're traveling the country at your own expense. How long can you keep doing this?
That's a very good question. I'm not sure. Probably not much longer if we don't get some decent backing and some decent funding. It's very hard to try and keep pulling things out of thin air. You know, pull another thing. Some sort of, you know, like our people in Billboard Battalion themselves personally are putting huge amounts of their own personal money into keeping this going. So how long is that sustainable? I'm not sure. And we do say, and I'm starting to say it now a lot more, because I was never of this isn't me, is to say, if the Australian people want a Billboard Battalion to keep going, well, you're going to have to start digging into the pockets.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, we've got some pretty big businesses who are going to lose everything. We've got multi-million-dollar businesses and properties who are going to lose the whole lot. So, you know, I say, well, the time is now. It's up to you. We get our little dribs and drabs and that from people, and we get a little bit more every now and again, which we're so grateful for. Like, we put some diesel in the bus there just the other day. It was $500 just to go, you know, not that far.
Yeah.
So, you know, people want us to go all over Australia. We're getting calls also from New Zealand. You know, so, you know, if we're going to do this, and we've basically, our life's over. You know, our businesses and our life and everything we do, it's just on hold permanently, pretty well. So we're in the game, we're in the fight, we're in the battle, we're prepared to do whatever we need to do. But we need some backing. We need some serious backing. We need it yesterday. And if we're going to stay in the fight, we're good to go for as long as this takes. Yeah. I have an amazing team around me, and they are dedicated 100% to what we're doing. And it all will fall back on finance, funding, and money.
Well, Adam and I hate asking for money, but at the end of the day, the stark reality is that you do need funds to keep going. And if we look at the other side and we look at groups like Climate 200 and how much they're pumping into election campaigns, I mean, 3 of the Teals spent over $2 million on their election campaigns, and that's what they declared. So not that I'm saying that maybe they've spent money elsewhere, but you just never know. There's a lot of money floating around. It all seems to be on the other side.
Yeah.
So we unfortunately have to rely on everyday people to chip in where they can. Wade, if there's anyone listening that does want to support you, how do they do so?
So we can get on to billboardbattalion.com, and we've got a link there to donate. Our bank account details are on there. We haven't gone down the path of any kind of crowdfunding or, that kind of stuff, the like, simply because I've heard too many stories of people who are politically motivated, who have some of these pages or these funds or whatever, and they'll get a heap of money donated to them, and all of a sudden whoever's running the page or the fund or I don't know, whatever it is, just say, well, they're going to shut it down. Whether they keep the money, whether they send it back, I don't know. But they just say, well, we don't like what you're saying, so we're going to cut off your funding. So
you've breached the community standards.
Yeah, well, I'd like to have an interesting chat with some of these so-called fact checkers. I'd like to have go toe to toe with them, because they're just the majority of them, in my opinion, they're liars, they're scum, and they are taking part in a very, very serious global campaign that ends very badly for the majority of the global population.
Yeah.
So,
and for them too, because as if they're going to be treated any better than any of us.
So if we lose, which it's on the cards, this is going to be a photo finish at best. But if we lose, then I suppose if there is any kind of poetic justice, then these parasites and losers who took part in promoting this, they're going to go down too. And I mean, I'm not into laughing at other people's misery, but as I said, I think it'll be poetic justice. And if we brought in some form of capital punishment for people to stand trial for crimes against humanity, for global genocide, and all the rest of it, which we've seen this happen before in Nuremberg, Germany. It should have been a hell of a lot bigger. But let's just say, if we went down that path and they needed someone to do it, I'm available Saturday. I'd be more than happy to donate some time, and by some time I mean the rest of my life, to taking these people down, putting them where they need to be, because of the horrendous crimes, the massive, enormous crimes that they have committed. And, this is a strategy. There's been working on this for hundreds of years, and now we've got to the point where they've almost pulled it off. And for what I know they've done, there's nothing that can happen to them that is bad enough. But we need to take the shot. We need to have a crack, because they're not going to stop unless they are stopped. And quite frankly, we the people have the power to stop them. And if we don't, then it is over. It's as simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. People have a lot more power than they realize, and they just need to get active. And they think that it's a hard slog, and in a lot of ways it is, but in a lot of ways it isn't. So they just have to get active and get involved. And I mean, you're leading the way with what you're doing, Wade. So you're setting an example for people. But we need to finish up, and it's this is the final segment of the XCandidates now. So I don't know if you have many positive opinions of politicians or people out there, but we're going to put you in charge of the next Parliament of Australia. It's called Build Your Own Fantasy Government. Now, Wade, you can choose 5 or 6 people to head up the next government of Australia. They can be current politicians, former politicians, anyone at all. People choose dead people. They choose people living in other countries. Anyone that you choose to head up the next Parliament of Australia, the choice is yours, 5 or 6 people.
So that would be the Billboard Battalion team. And it'd be a tough gig, but to try and find another couple out of all the terrific people that we've met, all the amazing Australians who put themselves out to try and help us. I would look at them, because for me, they're the true Australians. They're the ones who have turned up and who are in the trenches. They're the ones who are not trying to make a career. They're the ones who are not trying to make a fortune out of whatever. So, my team is exemplary. I know they're in this battle. They're not after money. They're doing it because they know that our country's under attack. And that's the only reason they're doing it. And there's such an enormous amount of terrific people who have supported us and look after us. So, I pull it out of that pool. And when we look at even people such as you blokes there, like what you're doing here, you're doing a great job. And I do a lot of interviews and a lot of podcasts and so on. And, blokes like you are the ones who are keeping this fight alive and giving people a chance, because information is the currency of this war.
Yeah.
And to have, people such as yourself who are putting in your time and effort and really helping people to spread the word, I'd rather have you blokes on the team than any of the politicians. There's a couple of politicians that are going around. I think they're pretty okay. A couple of the smaller parties, a couple of independents. But generally speaking, I talk to a lot of people who do this sort of stuff that you're doing, and I take my hat off to you. And I say thanks to you, because, if we are successful in winning this war, then a big part of that's going to be to people such as yourself, and I've spoken to a lot of them, and, you're the conduit between the people that need to be joining up and fighting. So I just say a big thanks to you and the opportunity to come on your show from Billboard Battalion's position and, what we're about. It's people like you that make this sort of stuff where the rubber hits the road, I like to say. So thanks to you fellas and all your team and whoever's backing you as well.
Oh, thanks, mate. Really appreciate it. Just us.
But we need to thank the audience as well, because there's a lot of people that follow us on every interview that we do. They contribute to the chats and they share our stuff out there, and that's the only way that we grow, and that's the only way that we give people like yourself an opportunity to get your message out there, and we can contribute that in a small way. So look, the audience is a huge part of this, and we just need to thank everyone that's watching, and either they're watching live or watching us later on. And sharing our podcasts. I mean, that's it's a massive deal, and that's what we need to do. You can just help out in any which way you can. You don't have to travel the country like Wade's doing. If you just share some interviews with your friends and family or whatever it needs to be, it does contribute a lot to this battle. So hats off to the audience as well.
Yeah, thank you very much to all the audiences, your audience and our audience. Appreciate everything that you do for us behind the scenes, which is, just by sharing, like Stephen said, and, the little donations here and there. And sometimes just, even when we're out and about at, conferences and stuff like that, when people come up and speak to us, they give us a lot of encouragement, and it kind of just fuels our fires, doesn't it, to keep us going. So just a kind word here and there and a pat on the back, which is sometimes it's enough just to get you through,
Absolutely. And, the one of the things that buoys us a lot is that we're seeing new people coming in now. Yeah. We're seeing new people coming into our meetings, watching our videos. I do a live every day at 12:30, or the best I can anyway. We try and do that. Our numbers and supporters are growing to the point where, we get so many fantastic comments that we don't have the capacity at the minute to go through them all and respond to them all. And I feel very bad about that, but I just love to say a big thank you to everybody who does support us, everybody who's watching and sharing. So, the meeting we ran today in Emerald, Central Queensland, cattle country there, I think we had something like about 4,000 or 5,000 views in like an hour or a couple of hours, and a huge amount of shares. So it's going off, and people are really getting interested in what Billboard Battalion is doing, because, you know, we have a particular style, and, you know, from around here, the cattle industry is finished if we don't fix this. Now, that's why we're here in Rockhampton. In another month's time, they're going to have what they call Beef Week. Once every 3 years, they have Beef Week in Rockhampton in Queensland. It's the biggest thing in the country. They have a lot of international breeders and so on who turn up here. So we're going to be at Beef Week. That's the plan, to start bringing the message to people and say, well, look, you need to realise this is happening. And if you don't help us fight this, you don't get involved, you're not going to have any more beef weeks. You're not going to have any more beef cattle.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've noticed some comments in the chat tonight from people that are saying, I haven't heard of Wade before, but he's incredible and he's fantastic. And I would have to totally agree to that. And thanks for Jody Lowe for helping us set this interview up. But for people that haven't followed you and have just discovered you and they want to follow you, you mentioned your website, but where else can they track you down and keep up to date with everything that you're doing?
So we've got Billboard Battalion on Facebook. We're also on Rumble and TikTok, Instagram, I think. Billboard Battalion is also on Twitter, or X, or whatever you call it these days.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're getting around. We've got a fair few platforms, and Rural Rebel is also giving our stuff a fair old go. So that's really, really great. We're just so appreciative to all the platforms that are giving us a run, and so appreciative to everybody who's sharing our material, and you fellas for giving us a run on your show, and to all the people who take the time to make the comments and respond to things and ask questions, because, you know, that's a bit of a barometer as to where we're at, and our numbers are growing. And, you know, you've got the few of the negative people who do the troll thing, and there's something wrong with them. That's okay. We understand that. But,
as
you know,
we said, one friend on Facebook. So it's someone that just set up a profile just to and who knows who they are. They could be Klaus Schwab or someone like that sitting behind it.
Yes. Well, we've had no trouble with trolls really up until the last few months. Something's happened. You know, I don't know. All of a sudden, we've got a whole heap of them coming out, and I'm sort of starting to suspect that maybe one or two people might be working together, and they've got a whole heap of different names. And as I said, there's 3 of them that I know of that they've identity thieved the names of some fairly prominent freedom fighters that I know personally. And we had one that was commenting on our stuff. And we've blocked it now. But it was coming up, and it was the name of a freedom fighter who's been in the game for a long, long time. And so I did an interview, I did a live, at Albury at a conference I was at a few weeks ago. And the troll, the name, was watching under this name.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what are the chances? People are going to be a bit confused, but what are the chances? Here we have Monica, and she stepped on camera, and I've known Monica for a fair while, you know, and for them to see us basically face to face talking on camera, but the Monica troll was on watching the live, so that just, you know, blew it to pieces. So people need to understand. And I think the rule of thumb, if you get somebody who comes on, irrespective of their name, if they become violent, if they become vitriolic, they're starting to swear and abuse people and abuse your audience, then they're not real people. They're some alias. And I think the funniest thing, just to finish up, and I'm sorry for taking so much time, but, you know, we're pretty passionate about what we do here. We're pretty passionate about saving lives and saving our kids and grandkids and the whole lot. So it's interesting that one of these trolls, or a couple of them combined, were saying that I'm a fake. And I thought, well, I'm here. My real name is what I use. My real face is what I use.
Yep.
I'm out in the public every day, completely identifiable. I tell people where I'm going, what I'm doing. And it's interesting that a couple of the people who are these troll things that were saying, oh, Wade's a fake, they are using stolen names. They are the ones who are the fakes. They are weak. They are cowards. And people call them keyboard warriors. I call them keyboard cowards. They're not warriors. They're weak. And I say to them, let's go. You come.
I love it.
I'll put you on camera. We'll do a live. Bring your real face. Let's do it. Let's give you an opportunity to prosecute your case. Let's give you an opportunity to put your points of view to the people and let them see who you really are. You weak, gutless cowards. So I say to my people, hopefully one day we'll learn their real names. And I want people to, not that I'm advocating violence, of course, but remember, they are the ones that hate your families. They're the ones that hate your kids. And they're the ones that try and stop the people who are fighting for you. Just once again, a little bit of light reading.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Wade. I can't wait for the Adam and Stephen trolls to start popping up, and they should be.
We can throw you a few extras if you're a bit light on.
Yeah, bring them on.
But thank you for everything you're doing. I'm sure that you're receiving a lot of love from people when you are traveling the country, because I'm sure they appreciate everything that you're doing, and you are doing some great work. And keep it up. Anytime that you want to come back on the show and get a message out or just speak to the audience in whatever way, let us know. We're happy to have you back, because I've been blown away by what you've said tonight and everything that you've put across to the audience. So big thank you from us, and hopefully we can speak to you in the future.
It's been my pleasure. And any time, give us a call. You want to have a go here? Do you want to do anything? Whatever you want to do, we're good to go anytime. So we'll be there. And once again, thanks a lot to you blokes and your team. I don't know if you've got producers, who you got around you. You do it yourself. I don't know. But
Steven's producer.
So once again, thanks a lot, fellas, and it's been an absolute pleasure. Very, very proud to be on your show and to be in this fight for Australia. So Wade Northausen for Billboard Battalion. We're currently in Rockhampton in Queensland, Australia. Signing off with Stephen and Adam.
Thank you very much.
We're signing off too. Thank you, Adam. Thank you for everyone that's watched tonight and everyone that will watch over the next few days and weeks and months. But please share it out. I say it every week. It does create a lot of momentum for our interviews. So if you can share this, please do so. We'll be back next week. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We'll see you next time. See you later.
See you later.